Welcome to the Fine Print, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Caleb Teskey, and we are wrapping up a long fucking week here. And I'm pleased to be joined by Tom, the Ganja delivery guy. Tom, it's been a pleasure speaking with you on the phone. I'm so glad to have you here this afternoon.
Thank you, Caleb. Thank you.
Yeah. Before we get into anything serious, you know how we do it, like a 5-minute life story. Would you mind telling everyone a little bit about sort of your background?
Most definitely, most definitely. I come from a single parent alcoholic family. Kind of a rough upbringing, you know what I mean?
Yes,
Um, I was raised around cannabis growing and use. It was frequent in my life, and I really didn't see it as a big deal. You know what I mean? I
where are you
always
from,
saw
Tom?
me. I originate from Southern New Hampshire. Graduated high school up there about 12 or 13 years ago. I moved up here, met my wife, and started a family.
Hmm. And so, you know why I brought you on. Tell me about everything that's happened in between New Hampshire and now to how we got up to this interview.
Well, I started cultivating and use at a very young age. I was around 9 years old when I first started utilizing cannabis. I was a truant of the state at 8 years old, not going to school and whatnot. So I had a lot of issues when it came to focusing and actually getting stuff done. Um, I didn't have a lot of positive people in my life. So I grew up with a mindset that was very, very low in status, and I kind of went with it for a good portion of my life. So I spent time in youth detention centers,
Really?
YDC. Yes, I ended up aging out of YDC.
Damn.
But by that time, I had gotten a good head on my shoulders. I realized education was a big thing. I ended up getting out of there, graduating high school. And then my love with cannabis really started at a teenage, like around 17 or 18. I started realizing the benefits that cannabis was having for me, and what it was capable of making me as far as a human goes, you know?
Hmm. Uh, Could I ask you about your experience in these juvenile detention centers? Is that something you'd care to speak on?
Most definitely, most definitely. It's jail for children. You do stupid things and you make mistakes as a child, and unfortunately, society is not too forgiving nowadays. Children are just as susceptible to going to jail as adults are. And a couple stupid mistakes as a young person ended me up in a cycle of going to different placements and having to deal with the state controlling every waking moment.
Hmm. What is your life like in there? What's your daily schedule?
Wake up,
What time?
get
What time? 5 a.m.
7 in the morning, 8 in the
Okay.
morning at latest. They would let you stay in. The doors would pop around 6 o'clock. You were allowed to stay in bed until about 7 or 8, and then they did their rounds, getting everybody up and out of bed to do their morning routines of showering, brushing your teeth, etc. Then it was usually lunch. You got a little rec time, and then it was straight back inside, caged up for the rest of the day. So it was no different than an adult going to jail and having to do a jail sentence.
And do they offer any other types of programs while you're in there to help you learn, or any educational type of
Schooling,
programs?
therapy. I took a marketing class when I was in
Oh,
there. I tried to utilize the time in there the best I could. I at that point I had known I screwed up in life, and I needed to make changes. I was starting to become a young man, and started making the right decisions, and really started utilizing the state for what they were worth. You know, I mean, they had me there with no other choice but to be a good kid. So
mm,
I took advantage of it and
mm,
started learning from my mistakes.
mm. Thank you for sharing, Tom.
No, definitely, definitely.
Mm. And I want to just real quick. I want to shout out to Sam Austin for introducing us, man. That was super cool. I love Sam. She's a great chick.
Super cool check, definitely.
You know, and I got to also just shout out to Zach Smith real quick for these hash gummies I ate right before we did this interview. So,
Most definitely,
all
most
right.
definitely.
And Tom, you said you're trying to get a cultivation license here. What's your story, sir?
So right now we're going for a tier 1 cultivation license. I've been
Mixed.
growing, so it's going to be mixed indoor and
Mixed.
outdoor. Yep. I've been growing on and off since a young age. I think my first couple plants were 14 years old. Somewhat successful. Got a run out of it, if you know what I
How old
mean.
are you now, Tom?
I am 35.
All right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I did some
Um,
quick
so
math there. All right.
yep. So about 6 years ago, I started apprenticing with a well-known grower. He was showing me ins and outs of the business. I was assembling at that time, so I was taking my weekends and I was going to spend it at farms and to learn and take in and soak up as much information as I was able to.
So you
So I
learned
spent
you learned on the fly.
yeah. So I had a love for it. I was already home cultivating at the time. I had converted a shower that was unused in our apartment that we were renting and turned it into a little 4x4 tent. Started doing
Okay.
my thing and
All right.
had some really good results. I was I guess I have a green thumb, you would say, some would say. I started taking well advantage of going to listen to whoever would let me at their farms. While I was traveling doing assembly, I would stop at any dispo that was recreational, any person that I knew on Instagram that was willing to bring me in and show me their farm and show me how the ropes went. I was in on that and I was just trying to get whatever education I could get.
So you've done a lot of tours of facilities and
Yep.
grow facilities as well,
Yeah. So I've been very
retail and so forth.
Exactly. So I've been very, very lucky for people to welcome me into their facilities. Some of them being legal facilities and some of them being gray market
Yeah,
facilities.
me too.
Um, I don't see much difference between them. They're all super professional, all give a crap about what they're doing. So, yeah, I got to tour not only dispensaries, I got to tour farms. I got to tour little delivery services and caretakers situations and just see how they roll with stuff. And some of them were super impressive, but some of them are just run of the mill high school plugs, if you will.
Mm.
But yeah, I feel like I got a lot of education from that. Right before COVID hit, my wife had been seeing the results I was getting out of my small little 4x4 shower tent, and she was very encouraging. She wanted me to continue growing. She wanted me to continue furthering who I was as a cannabis creator, and she talked me into starting a cannabis business. So
Mm.
I started growing professionally or whatnot about 3 years ago, and off we went. Started
And,
helping people out with just medicine, just as a friendly thing to do, and after getting so many compliments and having people really enthused with what I was creating, I helped out as many people as I can. You know
mm.
what I mean? Yeah.
Are we talking about medical patients here?
So some of them are. I have some people that I make RSO for that are medical patients. They're either terminally ill or they are just really, really sick individuals that are having a hard time with their prescriptions and stuff, and the prescriptions making them feel worse. Not really getting any kind of substance to life. They're feeling like their life is pretty much done and gone. And I've helped about a handful of people out with RSO with some really, really great results coming back from them. Just really positive feedback. There,
And
you get
so you're basically essentially you're donating free material to cancer patients.
correct, correct. Yep.
Wow.
I'm a big believer in any use is medical use. I don't really see the difference between recreational and medical. I believe if you're using it as a de-stressor, that's medical. If you're using it just to make your night a little bit better, that's also medical. Medical starts with the mind, you know what I mean? And keeping the mind healthy is one of the greatest things we can do for our bodies.
Mm. I'm going to quote you on that later.
Word.
Can you tell me? You mentioned that you went to a bunch of dispensaries and
Yep.
things like that. Can you tell me if there are any that have really impressed you?
Yes. So I recently got to check out Rugged Roots, who is over in Maine. They are doing big things. Their facility is gorgeous. I also got to go to Upstate Gardens, which is also in Maine. They have an unbelievable in the middle of really a factory is what it feels like. It's factory setting, and they have a beautiful setup there for
And we're
processing.
talking retail dispensary, medical dispensary. What are we talking here?
So these are medical and retail. They cater to both sides of the
Oh,
market.
in one building.
Yes, yes.
So
So they
co-located.
yes, yes.
Okay.
There's been a couple smaller grows that I've been really impressed with. There's a few around here that I've seen. I'm really impressed with the work that Nick Forbin is doing. He's a great dude. I love what
Nick
he's
Matei.
doing. Huh?
Nick Matei.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Forbin's
I
finest. Yeah. No, but I agree with you. Some
yeah,
of the best flower I've seen in the state, honestly.
yeah. He's doing great work, man. I really appreciate him. Devin from Tall Truck, he's another guy that's doing great work, and I really appreciate him. There's a crap ton of individuals that are doing God's work when it comes to cannabis, man. And a lot of them are right here in our state. Some of them are still kind of gun shy and not really out in the open. But I think with the regulation and everything coming about, and we're seeing a lot more of the stigma being broken down with cannabis, right?
And that was something that you touched on, and that's a great segue, Tom. So
Yeah.
you really wanted to sort of dispel this sort of stigma, and I'd like to give you a chance to do that right now.
Most definitely. So a big thing for me is you notice when we're watching Super Bowl commercial or whatnot, it's nothing for an alcohol commercial to pop on, and it's not a big deal. We see it as another Super Bowl commercial. I don't see cannabis any different than alcohol. I really think that the stigma, as far as people being able to drink around their children, and people saying, "Oh, you shouldn't be smoking around your children," I think that's far from the truth. I believe my kids are alive to this day because I did utilize cannabis. But yeah, I really think the stigma as far as that goes, um, it should be a family business. There should be no reason why we should be looking down at people that want to bring in their children and educate them. I think education is one of the big.
Because what are we doing here, Tom? We're growing plants, right?
Yes, it's strictly gardening. We're farmers. If you're cultivating, and no matter what plant it is, you're a farmer. My child, my youngest is 9. She does not see the plant as anything but a plant. She has no bad thoughts about it. She's not like we were as children, where we were told it's bad and to look down at people that smoke and really it's a drug and whatnot. She sees it for the medicine it is. I believe my children definitely see the good that it does and the positive that it has, and they definitely don't see much negative from it
And I got
besides
to
the
tell you,
connotations.
I got to tell you this, Tom. In terms of skills that children could learn, it seems like gardening is more important than fucking social studies or something. Like
Yep,
it seems like maybe we should be teaching kids how to grow plants or grow,
most definitely.
and not. I don't mean cannabis. I want to be very clear about that. I mean, grow your own food, take
Yeah.
care of yourself. Things of that nature.
So I think with children as well, one big factor we don't look at is cannabis does not contain any THC until around the flowering stage, correct? So for a kid to be handling a vegetative cannabis plant should be no big deal, right? I do believe once it gets towards the flowering stage and once you get to the end stage of growing the plant, that children definitely should be pushed away from it for now, and until we can find an easier way of yeah. I mean, you look at people that own breweries, right? It's not a big deal nowadays for a child to be in a testing room, right? That they have
Stir in your mashup.
exactly. So I really would like to see cannabis in the same situation as that. Obviously, we don't want kids in the testing rooms, and
Right.
we don't want
Nobody,
them drinking.
nobody wants that.
No, but I believe pushing our kids away from it and not educating them is only going to harm us in the long run. I
It,
mean,
hmm.
go ahead.
It just seems wild that we've had to sort of debate, like, is this agriculture or is it? It's clearly agriculture, right?
It
It's
clearly
just
is.
like growing any other plant, and it's like
No different.
if you can have a corn farm and teach your kids how to grow corn. I mean, is this different?
Yep.
I just it's still I'm still having a hard time sort of wrapping my mind around that argument.
Most definitely. Most definitely.
Hmm.
It goes back to reefer madness. It goes back to people with the mindset that cannabis is a drug and it should not be seen as anything other.
Do drugs grow in the ground as plants?
No, I believe most drugs that we have need some kind of chemical process to
Mhm.
make them into the drug that they are. Correct.
Right. Like
Yep.
cocaine doesn't grow on a leaf. You have to
No.
process the coca. Okay. All right.
Yep.
I'm just saying. Let's get into this delivery thing, Tom, because
Most
um,
definitely.
I asked you to watch my interview with Nick Shorman yesterday, which you said you did, and
Yes.
I'm curious to hear. Nick was really the first one to sort of lay out what they're planning in terms of this bill that they're trying to push through, maybe in the next legislative session. But
Yep.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts about how a delivery system might work. Let's just start there.
Okay. So I believe for the state not having delivery automatically on the ballot when they opened up the whole recreational market. I believe that's a mistake on their part. I believe that's something that we should be pushing towards. We live in such rural communities up here in Vermont that it's hard enough for individuals to get to regular doctor's appointments, let alone drive all the way to Montpelier or Burlington just to get some medical grade cannabis or just anything that's a good product, really. I think we should be making it more accessible in the communities from people that we know, right? I believe the relationship between the farmer and the consumer, there's a bridge right now, and that needs to be gapped and capped up. Let's get rid of that bridge completely, and let's have it exactly how everybody wants their food, farm to table. You know the farmer, you know where your food's coming. You have any problem with that, you go straight to your farmer and say, hey, Tom, I don't like what's coming out of this. I think the state is definitely a good candidate for a delivery service. You look at Maine and they have some of the same rural issues that we have.
Right.
Um,
Not everybody has the transportation to sort of get out to a dispensary,
correct,
maybe.
correct. So Maine implemented, I think it was 3 years ago, I want to say, they implemented a delivery service bill and they're allowing businesses to deliver. I think once they did that, their market kind of opened up and they had a lot more revenue coming into the state. There was a lot more education as far as consumer knowing what they're consuming. I think that they actually um, they jumped ahead of the gun. And I know that there was a lot of Maine businesses that were doing delivery before there was actually laws in place, just because of the strict need for a service such as that, right? Um, I think once we get on that path, I think the opportunities are endless as far as business goes with the whole delivery side.
And so, Tom, what we're talking about is sort of like a maybe like an Uber style system, or
Correct.
maybe just like you can call your farmer and be like, "Hey, I need an eighth." Do you have any comments on that?
Yep, yep. So I think that so to get
Hey, I got you there. I got you a little bit. Yeah, it's a
yeah,
good
you kind
question,
of
right? Like, who gets to do the deliveries? You
so
know,
I think not allowing the farmers themselves to vertically integrate in their business, right? I think if an individual is able to grow their cannabis, right, and create their own products, that they should be able to sell them or deliver
what
them,
take it to a farmer's market or
take it to a farmer's market. potentially set up a pop-up where you have multiple farmers there, give the consumer an option of where to go to. I really think that us as a state, people don't come to Vermont to go to Walmart, or they don't come for our big box stores. They come for our craft goods, right? And the good vibes. I think as long as we stick to that with this whole delivery thing, I don't think all the issues that are being brought up are even valid. If you look at them talking about, oh, once cannabis comes around and there's cannabis in a car, that there's automatically going to be car crashes or an uptick in accidents. And I think that the research, that the little that has been done, has pointed the opposite way of that.
I believe the research that I've looked at in terms of driving has been inconclusive.
Yeah. Yep.
Which I believe has been presented as conclusive, but really it's like I've read at least 1,000 pages of driving studies, and they all seem inconclusive, man.
Yep.
Especially for regular users or people who use frequently. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about the roadside safety, because you had some really great comments on that. But
yeah, most definitely.
I thought once again that the state was sort of trying to create a one size fits all rule for something that clearly affects everyone differently.
Correct. You look at every morning in America, there's millions of people that wake up, they take their prescription drugs, and they continue on with their day. Some of them being narcotics, barbiturates, etc. Right? Nobody looks twice at those individuals that do that and continue on with their day. I don't believe cannabis should be any different than that. It's all situational if you think about it. It's all about the user and their tolerance, whether they're a new user or an older user. I know individuals that are totally capable of medicating and then going out and doing their excavator job or their driving job, etc. Do I condone it? Not all the time, but I really think more research needs to be done to get a better understanding on the effects and the human mind.
But in an adult use market, similar to like you said, like alcohol,
Yep.
shouldn't adults be able to sort of make their own mind up whether or not they've had too much to drive?
Yeah, that is my belief, man. I believe as adults, we need to make decisions daily, that affect our lives. And as adults, we should be able to make the correct decision and do what's right as adults.
Because you can go to a bar and you can drink 4 double IPAs. You can leave there, and that's fine. But like
Yep.
if you smoke a joint in your car and get pulled over, suddenly it gets weird. Like I've never understood that, man. Well, I do
No, me
understand
neither.
it. I kind of understand it, but it's
No, I understand the whole impairment and the whole thing where they're worried about youth using cannabis and they're worried about not experienced users utilizing it. And I do think there's factors there that can be a problem, but I really think it's overly stigmatized about the effects that it has for long-term users.
so you think the hype is a little overblown.
Correct.
Me too.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, Tom? What has your relationship been like with law enforcement during your life?
All right. So as I was saying before, I had a kind of rocky relationship growing up. I didn't really have any positive people in my life saying otherwise or telling me to respect the police and whatnot. As I've gotten older, I've grown to respect for law enforcement and stuff, and I do see a need for them in certain aspects. So my relationship wasn't always good with police, but it has gotten a little better as I got older.
Mine wasn't either.
Yeah, a couple issues I have strictly with the Vermont State Police right now is one of their openers when they pull you up isn't, license registration. It's how much have you smoked tonight or drank, which I don't think is a good opener.
Let me pause you right there. Have you been stopped and questioned in that manner by the Vermont State Police?
I have. Yep. And as a cannabis creator, So sometimes my car does smell like cannabis, and that's not always because I'm driving and utilizing cannabis. That could just be I transported uh, a couple units from this side to this side or whatnot. It it's really
I smell like weed all the time. I just want to
yeah.
put that out there.
I
Is that a
grow it.
con?
I grow it, so I'm going to smell it.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? And that's kind of how I put it out to the cops. I'm very open with them, and I tell them right off the bat, I'm a cannabis creator. Of course, I smell like cannabis. That does not mean I'm utilizing it. And most of
That's,
them have been pretty cool about it
that's
and
like when
kind
I'm a
of,
bartender and they're like, "Yo, you smell like alcohol." It's like, yeah, I pour fucking booze all day.
yep,
What do you want
exactly,
me to do? How do I not leave
exactly,
work smelling like alcohol?
exactly. I
Okay.
think for the most part, the Vermont State Police and the police in general in Vermont are kind of looking past cannabis. They're not prioritizing it anymore. They're starting to
Well, they shouldn't
come
be, right?
around, I
Because
guess.
they shouldn't be, right? Because it's legal now.
100%. So we recently were going to our town, Old Towns Day. We're trying to get one of our towns that we live in to pass retail sales.
You're trying to get the opt-in vote.
Yes,
What
yes.
town is that, Tom?
That's in Lunenburg, Vermont.
Okay.
Yep.
How is
So
that going? I'd love to hear about how you've been involved in that.
it's actually I've gotten a lot more positive feedback than I was expecting. I was expecting a lot more um, standoffness. I expected people not to want it, but I've gotten over 100 signatures. I got most of the selectmen to sign on it. I got Sheriff Colby, which is one of our local sheriffs. He actually signed it.
You got a
Said he
sheriff to sign on the opt-in vote.
yes.
Is he friendly? I would love to talk to a cop, dude, and have a sheriff on my show.
Most definitely. So Trevor, he is friendly. And from what
Trevor Colby.
correct. And
Okay,
from what
cool.
he says, he has no problem with cannabis as a whole. The problem that he has is the state turning him and his brothers in arms or whatever the heck you want to call it, turning them into revenue agents. He doesn't want to go around being a revenue agent. He doesn't see cannabis as that bad of a substance.
So
He
why did he
really,
become a cop?
I don't know. I don't know.
I'd love to talk to him. That sounds like my kind of guy, and I think we could have a great conversation.
Most
I'd
definitely,
really,
yeah.
I've been dying to get a cop on my show, and not a single one of them will get back to me.
I'll mention it to him. I know he will be a little standoffish because, of course,
Yes,
he has had to
dude,
arrest a few.
I'm a little standoffish.
Most definitely, most definitely.
Yeah, yeah.
He seems to be pretty open and honest about his whole opinion on the situation.
Hmm. Let's come back to that later. I want to keep
Most
going
definitely.
here. You mentioned at one point, I believe on the phone, that you were using cannabis to treat symptoms of attention deficit disorder,
Yep.
and I was hoping maybe you would speak on sort of why you made the decision to use cannabis to treat that, and
Yep.
sort of how it's helped your symptoms.
So around 12 or 13 years old, my parent started noticing a difference in me, being able to focus, actually getting through school for a full day without getting a call from the office. And one of the questions is, what are you doing to stay not so rambunctious or however you want to call it? I wasn't focused before, and then all of a sudden I was focused. And I was straight up and I was like, I'm utilizing cannabis and I
Did
feel
they give
like it
you
calms me down.
did they give you any other drugs, like any
Yeah.
of the Ritalins or any of those kind of
So,
drugs to try
yes.
to help you before?
Yes, I was on Ritalin for a good year and a half.
And how did you feel about that?
Oh, it made me lethargic. It just turned me into a totally different person. I was usually upbeat and lively and talkative, and you'd be hard pressed to get me to have a conversation with you while I was medicated off of Ritalin and
Did you
whatnot.
ever feel like maybe you were like watching a movie of yourself from the background of like,
Yes, yeah, no, but it definitely put me in an out of body kind of mindset, right?
Mm.
I didn't like the way it made me feel. Others saw that it made me a different person. So I was given the option at 13 years old to totally get rid of my prescriptions and to start utilizing cannabis as long as my good behavior continued.
Mm.
So I did that. Like I said, I had been going in and out of placements, so I wasn't fully able to utilize cannabis as a medicine like I would have wanted, right? But I
So
did see
so
great results.
do you think the cannabis helped you get off of the Ritalin and that kind of stuff?
Of course, I contribute cannabis to me graduating high school. Without it, I don't think I would have had the focus and the capabilities that I had to actually get work done when I was medicated. So
Mm.
I definitely think it was a big factor in me being able to get off of medicine and to be able to have somewhat of a normal life as a kid,
Uh,
troubled kid.
and I'm going to throw this at you because I was on some ADD drugs for about a decade, and sometimes it does make you, dude. It makes me feel like a fucking zombie, man.
True
Like
story.
it works for a while, but
Hmm.
also honestly, it's like watching a movie of my own life where I'm not actually part of it, and
Yep.
I'm just sort of, I'm the director, maybe like the producer. I don't know. I'm standing back from a distance, but like I'm not actually involved in it, and I don't
Yep.
like that feeling, man. It makes I like to be in the moment, and it really takes me out of the moment.
Yep. I believe synthetics are one of the worst things that society has done. I don't see any use for a lot of them. I know there's been a lot of good medicines that have come out that have helped people, but you look at the reverse adverse effects that some of these medicines have, and they're worse than the underlying condition that you're trying to treat.
Right. Well, especially with amphetamines, and there's certain stimulants that they use to treat the ADD conditions. It's like I don't know if maybe loading me up with amphetamines is the best plan. Like, I personally, I'm not a
Yeah.
doctor, but
No,
like
yeah.
that was their plan, and it's like maybe we could have come up with something different. And they won't even. Most doctors won't even talk to you about cannabis because if they
Nope.
have federal funding, they can't talk to you about it.
We have doctors in our own state right now that are still telling patients that are asking about cards that it's not quite legal yet. We've had a few people come up to us and ask the whole legality of things and whatnot. And we have to tell them that there's a recreational market that's just not live yet.
Mm.
So it is totally legal for somebody to possess a few plants and to utilize cannabis recreational in our state, but there's no outlets for anybody to properly sell their medicine or to be a cannabis creator in our state right now.
And you said, I believe, I don't know if this was a direct quote, but I believe you made some comments to the effect that legalization has maybe just put more rules in place that small farmers have to worry about.
Yep. So I know a lot of still grain market farmers that aren't interested into the legal market because of all the rules and regulations that are being brought forth. They're set in their ways. They've been growing 30 plus years. Why are they going to set themselves into a market that they're not comfortable with, right? And I don't disagree with them at all. But I
Do
definitely
you
think
feel
that
like some of the regulations have made this sort of cost prohibitive, or maybe
I believe a lot of the regulations in already set up states that have legal markets that have already gone live. I believe it's caused more of an issue as far as the gray markets or the black markets thriving more. With the rules and regulations and all this talk about capping cannabis THC levels and other things, I think that's only further in the black market even more. It's making them thrive because before the legal market, there was high potency cannabis, right? And I believe whether there's a legal market or not, there will always be high potency cannabis. There's individuals that smoke a single pre roll, and
yeah.
that's good for them for a day. But there's
Go ahead,
individuals that
go ahead
smoke a
with the
quarter or more.
go ahead with the THC caps. Don't go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. So I think the THC cap, like I was saying, um, so It obviously needs to be an adult use only, right? We've come to the conclusion in society that the brain does not stop developing until about 21 years of age, right? And girls, I think it's a little younger, but I think boys definitely need that 21. One thing that bothers me with it is we're totally willing to send our young men and women to war at 18 years old, but we can't allow them to have a drink or take a little toke before they do so.
Can't even have a cigarette now.
Exactly. I think it's kind of a travesty. They're kind of working backwards. Kids, as I've seen as a young, are going to get the substances that they want, no matter if you put rules and regulations out. It really goes back to education once again. I think more people need to be educated because the individuals that are making some of these laws and regulations aren't heavy users themselves. So maybe they see the effects being more.
I bet some of them don't smoke weed at all.
There is I won't say it's a problem, but there's individuals getting into this industry right now that really have no idea about
I
cannabis
in
at
the
all.
legislature. I didn't mean in the industry, but yeah.
Well, if you think of legislation, if they're making the laws, they're part of the industry. You know what I mean? Or at least they should be, you would think, correct?
I will accept that. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
yeah. If they're creating the industry, they are part of the industry. Yeah, yeah.
Correct. They should at least have used or be users themselves. How can you? I could never make up rules for tennis because I've never stinking played tennis.
40 love. Tom, I got to pause for 1 second. Hang on here.
Definitely.
You still there?
Yep.
Okay. I have a note here about your wife getting pulled out of the car by a cop.
Yep.
I didn't know if that's something I could ask about, but
She said we could definitely talk about that. It was in New Hampshire, though.
Dude, you're welcome to bring her on too if she's there.
Oh, I haven't showered yet.
She's all set.
Okay.
She's
that's okay though. I'd like to ask about that. Okay.
Yep.
And I was also a nice drug addict too, and I'm sober 6 years.
Yep.
Okay, cool. And this isn't like a, yeah, I just, it's important.
Yeah, so how do we segue back to that?
A lot of people about PTSD. I got a little PTSD from my fucking cop interactions, man. And
yep.
So I'm gonna drop right back in here. All right.
I think we did.
Oh, I might have. I'll cut that out if I have to.
Word.
Tom, I have a note in my phone here about your wife being dragged out of her car by a cop, and that was super disturbing to me. And if you'd care to speak on that, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, unfortunately, she was. We were on vacation down in southern New Hampshire. At that time, she wasn't even a user of cannabis at all. I was the one using. I had been driving. We were at a family get together, and instead of smoking around the kids, we were over next to my car and we were smoking, and we were smoking a blunt. We got like halfway through it. Everybody decided they were done with it, so I just put it in the side of the door. Forgot all about it, and we were on our way back from vacation and decided to pull over so we could switch seats. At that point, a police officer had pulled up behind us, came over to my wife's window, asked her to roll down the window. His immediate questions were about drugs and alcohol. He wasn't really too concerned with what we were doing in a closed store parking lot. He was more or less accusing us of being drug users or something like that. We assured him that we weren't there using drugs, that we were heading back home. We were just trying to get our bearings about us, right? And within that time of talking to him, he had either smelt or seen the blunt. And before any more words can be had, he had my wife by her hair and was dragging her out through the window as the other cop had me pushed up and pinned against the car.
You grabbed your wife, your wife got pulled out of a car by her hair.
Yep. And she was still seatbelted. She was not unseatbelted. She was pulled out of her seat.
For having a blunt in the car.
Correct. They were accusing us of having a bunch of drugs. They were asking about cocaine and about heroin, and I guess
it smelled like weed. They asked you about cocaine.
They asked about coke and other drugs. Yes. We kind of were not really standoffish, but we're a little insulted that we were being asked the question. So yeah, our response wasn't like, oh, yes, sir, no, sir. It was very, we took a tone with him, I guess, but he took every opportunity to drag my wife out of the car by the head of her hair, slammed her on the ground, it treated her like a straight criminal, and then searched the car completely and only found the single blunt. He was very upset about that. He was adamant that we had more drugs in the car, that if we were utilizing cannabis, we had to be druggies.
And what happened to you guys after that?
She got arrested for it, and we were detained for like a couple of hours, and then I just had to quickly pay a bail for her. They wouldn't let her out on her own personal recognizance for some reason.
Even though it was like your blunt, maybe?
It was decriminalized in the state and everything. I tried saying it was mine. You know what I mean? I said the blunt was mine, and
So this is after decriminalization, and a police officer is ripping your wife out of the car by her hair.
Yep.
Over a blunt.
Yep.
It was in New Hampshire.
Yes, this was in New Hampshire, so it's
Those
not
New Hampshire
uninspected.
No
Yeah.
comment. No comment about New Hampshire cops.
Yeah, I believe they're in a precarious situation right now. They're stuck in between two legal states. They're going to have nothing but a thriving black market here pretty soon that's going to inundate the state, whether they like it or not.
But it's an
already have.
excuse to pull a woman out of a car by her hair.
Yep.
For a fucking a blunt.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, they had arrested her for a controlled substance, and it just sounded weird to me, like a controlled substance. We weren't very good at hiding it. It was right in the door. It just seemed a little much for the situation, and the treatment after that, after them finding a single blunt, was just absurd. I didn't see the need for it.
Did they impound your car or anything like that?
Yeah, they impounded the car and everything
for a blunt.
They treated it like they found a bunch of heroin on us, and they were making us pay for it. And really, it was just us not being compliant, basically. Yeah. Wow. But so
I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to hear that, Tom.
Yeah. It was a rough situation.
My fucking ass.
It does, man. It's just that's one of the things I'd like to see done is more education for our policemen. You know what I mean? A lot of them don't know the plant, you know what I mean? And they've spent years and years going after people for that. And the stigma needs to be broken with them.
What if we had weed dealers doing educational classes for cops?
Well, 100% of what we want to do as a business is educate people on cannabis. There's a lot of users nowadays that have strictly only utilized flower. They don't know anything about concentrates, hash, edibles. Really.
That's very true.
You ask them about edibles and they'll say, oh, brownies. That's their go-to. They don't know that there's infused everything nowadays.
And I got to tell you, Tom, responsible use, I think, is very important, especially for people who haven't used a lot. Like if you go just start smoking hash rosin dabs, you're going to be fucking blasted,
Correct.
And, whoever's serving that up to you should be like, hey, listen up. Like, this is a quadruple IPA or whatever the fuck, someone who knows what they're giving you and knows the experience level of the customer.
Like I said, I have been to a crap ton of dispensaries, and you notice first time users going in and grabbing concentrates that they may or may not have had a lot of experience with. With really little education. They might be told about the product, but they're not told about consumption, proper ways of consumption, different ways of consumption, right? They're pretty much just sold the product and left to be at their own devices, which I don't think is 100% responsible.
Yeah,
I think we should
I don't even really know how to work a dab rig. My homie always would give the dabs. He was the
100%.
torch guy, and I was just like, yeah, give me that. Like, let me know when it's ready. Like, I don't know how to And now they got laser readers for the dab rigs and all
Rights, I
that
believe
shit.
they're
Like,
called.
you let it cool down. Apparently, we were torching them.
Oh yeah.
You know, so even I, to this day, I'm still learning. Every day, I learn something new about smoking, and it's wild. It's been such a steep learning curve.
Yep. Yep. I myself am constantly. I think cannabis is a constant educational business, and it's to call it a business is a little far fetched too. I think with cannabis, it's a lifestyle more than it is a business. If you don't eat, sleep, and shit cannabis, then what the heck are you doing in the business? You should have a great understanding of the plant. You should want others to have a great understanding of the plant, and you should do your best to be a good steward to the plant.
And Tom, I just got a couple more here for you, but I want to ask you about security because in terms of a transportation business, it seems like the number one concern is security and liability. You got to have that shit locked up in a trunk, in a lockbox, or something. You have to have a camera in your car that's pointed at the product. So
Yeah.
if any, I'd like to. Could you lay out maybe what your idea of an ideal transportation system would look like before we get out of here?
Yeah, most definitely. So I believe that cannabis delivery should be a two lock system. So you should either have it in a locked bag in your locked trunk, or if you have a small enough order that you can lock it in your glove box. I believe that with most cannabis businesses, we're so rural and small up here that they're not going to be carrying anything of substance, like large amounts that as a farmer, I would be worried about losing a pound over losing an eighth or two. So I think we're spending a lot of time worrying about the what ifs and not looking at the states that have already implemented some of these programs and actually been successful with them. I think we should be following Mass and Maine very closely. There's a thriving market in Maine that does really well with their delivery services. I think as long as we implement some of the same laws and regulations that they are already currently using, that farmers are going to know how to deal with it. I think one of the first things is knowing your customer and your customer knowing you. That way there's a comfortability about it. I give you a good product, you give me money, it goes in my pocket.
That trust factor is really huge.
Yes, yes. And that's another thing I think that farmers should be able to deliver retail or whatever their products right out of their same business. I think that's a really good idea. I don't think any other way will give you that end result where you and the end consumer know each other and have a comfortable relationship. And I think without that relationship, you're just a salesman. You're just selling everyday crap.
Can I ask you this, Tom? Are you worried about robberies at all?
So robberies, I know of some delivery services that have been operational in other states and some that may or may not be in our state that have been very successful with their delivery services, have not had not one, any kind of robbery. The cars are unmarked. They're not driving around with enough product for it to be worth it or money to be worth somebody knocking over. I believe getting with our local police departments and letting them know about us and actually having a legal market's only going to make it less unsafe. With no delivery at all, you're leaving open a gray area or a black market delivery services that do have the potential of being robbed and being taken advantage of.
So even after all this shit, you are still looking to maybe work collaboratively with the local police department to
Correct. Correct. We need each other. We're all a part of the same community, so there's no reason why we should not be working together. If it is a legal business, then we should be able to work hand in hand with our local police departments. There should be no reason otherwise, you know?
Huh. Huh. I got one more question for you, Tom. Who did your logo and your hats and your flag there? Could you tell us a little bit about that? I love your flag.
Everything we do at McGinty's Magical Meds, we do in-house. Either my wife or I have a hand in the design and the making of stuff. Me and my wife made this. I made that. I mean, um, it's all just for my brains, man. It's who we are as individuals. We took that and we created a brand and ran with it. And that's who we are. I mean, that's my grow page. This is my company. Some people might get confused with it, but with a gray and a legal market, you kind of gotta be on both sides until everything is said and done.
And I want to thank your wife for allowing us to share that story.
Most definitely.
That's something that
Most definitely. It was hard as a husband and as a man to sit back and allow that to happen to a loved one, and to watch another man physically assault my wife. You know, it didn't stand right with me, and I still have a sour taste, a little PTSD from it. But you can't sit and
what the fuck do you do?
yeah, you can't sit and ponder on it and
You
let
gonna
that
fight a cop?
ruin your
Like
future relationships with
that?
police officers.
Yeah,
Because with any industry and any part of society, you're gonna have the good and the bad. There's really, really good people out there, and then there's really crappy people out there that are looking to just screw you over. And that goes with any industry, any business, any part of society.
Well, Tom, I've reached the end of my notes. And first of all, I just want to really thank you for your time, man. This has been wonderful. I really, when Sam introduced us, I wasn't sure what the fuck we were going to talk about.
Yes,
But
sir.
but this has been really lovely, and I want to thank you for your time and thank you for sharing some pretty personal stories there. And
Most
I
definitely.
always like to give my guests the last words. So this is all you, Tom.
Most definitely. I really appreciate you, Caleb, taking interest in what we do. And I just would love to spread the word of being positive towards our fellow growers, not having any kind of mindset as far as being standoffish. There's no competition in this business. We should all be a family. We should all have love and respect for one another. We're all in the same fight. We live the same kind of way each day. We all have a love for a plant that is making miracles in our lives and others, and we should do nothing but to help and support each other.
What a fantastic note to leave it on right there, Tom.
Yes, sir.
Tom, the Ganja delivery guy. Listen, I have to thank you again. I always thank everyone excessively at the end of the show, but it's Friday. And Tom, look, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, man. I love your hats. I love your fucking flag. And it's really just been, thank you. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with me. And I wish you a lovely weekend, my friend. Thank you for sharing your
Most
time with me.
definitely, Caleb. Thank you very much, brother.
All right. Peace.
See ya.
Perfect. I'm going to call you in a second.
Hey, tell